Alright y'all, it's your boy, 12, back at you with another video. This video is going to be over KVK 1 commander investments. If you guys haven't checked out my beginner guide, I'll put it in the description below. There are a few new commanders that maybe are worth going through. This isn't necessarily just like a specifically F2P guide, it just is a guide on early game investments. I feel like it's rather obvious, but I don't mind going through commander versus commander to just kind of break down everything. I see a lot of misinformation going out around, and perhaps it's just because, you know, when I restarted, the information was very fresh. I was a new player, I was always releasing videos over new content, and I haven't released one of these in a while, so I figured something like this would be pretty useful. We're going to go through all 19 of the available KVK 1 legendaries. We're not going to be talking about the epics because the epics should be really simple. If you're messing up the epics, I really don't know what to tell you guys. We're just going to go through a list of every single legendary, what I like about them, what I don't like about them. Maybe I'll do a tier list at some point as well, but right now I just want to talk about basically just the high points of like what is good for what reason, and then what I would invest in as a sum total of that. Without further ado, if you guys enjoy this type of content, be sure to drop a like, a follow, consider subscribing, all that good stuff. If you guys want to help support the channel, please consider donating to the Streamlabs link in the description below. If you guys are new to the game or more experienced players and you guys are interested in private coaching, you guys can always feel free to go to the Discord in the description below and make a ticket. It's 35 bucks for an on-stream session, 75 bucks for an off-stream session. If you guys are interested in that, check it out. If not, let's get to it. All right, first off is Pyus. Pyus is probably, I want to say, the newest commander to be released. Came out with Greece, and he's pretty good. He's actually not a bad commander at all. He's just not worth investing in, like, at all. I would say if you're a very high spender, there are perhaps some rallies where you might want him, or if you're a very high spender, perhaps he's worth running in the open field. I really just don't like him a ton for the vast majority of players. And if you're already maxing every single commander, then I guess you really don't need this guide, right? Like, it's probably not a big deal at that point. He's not bad overall. His direct damage factor is okay for really early game. The normal damage factor isn't bad. His second skill is quite nice. This is a fine fighting commander. However, investing in a KVK 1 commander is psychotic, so there's not a huge reason to do so unless it is an exceptional commander or has some kind of late game power, which he really doesn't. He's not that strong. The next commander I'm looking at is going to be Thos the Third. Thos is pretty good. He's actually not bad at all. I have seen some people 5-5-1-1 him and have like decent kind of success. Thos YSG. Me personally, I wouldn't do that. I don't think it's a good investment of your sculptures at all. I think he's pretty good. I just don't think he's that good. He falls kind of in the Pyus category, however, or the Pyus category. However, I probably prefer like Charles Martel to Pyus, whereas like Thos is probably the best legendary archer for what he does. He's a really good rally as well. So if you wanted to run like Thos YSG, there's nothing wrong with that, and I think it's definitely a choice to be considered if you're a very high spender. If you're a medium low spender, or you're like not doing any kind of rally things, I would not invest in him. Not really a good idea, I think. Next is gonna be Charlemagne. You actually get him at the end of KVK 1. He's bad. Don't invest in him. We're not gonna look at him. He's bad. Okay. Next up, we're gonna have Ragnar. Ragnar is like a worse Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar is already a commander that I would not suggest putting any kind of legendary sculptures into. And so if he's worse than him, we definitely skip him. Next, we're gonna have Meed. Meed's actually really, really cool. If you are buying dailies to get your Meed to 5-5-1-1 is probably not a bad idea. Meed has a lot of really good late game utility. I would say if you're looking at different commanders to buy for dailies, Meed is not a bad one. Later we're going to talk about where I would put in legendary sculptures and who I would invest and where I would put dailies. However, Meed is just an excellent commander overall. He hits 5 marches, which generally you're not hitting 5 marches in like early game murder balls. However, in late game murder balls, hitting 5 marches with this ability is really not that hard. His second ability is legit awesome. 20% skill damage bonus and 20% attack bonus is awesome. Even if you don't use him immediately in your marches, if you have him as an auxiliary commander in any capacity, pretty good. I would not put universal sculptures in him, however, from dailies, not a bad choice. Next up is going to be Julius Caesar. Now, Julius Caesar is a commander that comes out on the Mightiest Governor event. The Mightiest Governor event is not worth participating in, and Julius Caesar is not worth your sculptures, your time, your XP, your stars, really anything. Julius Caesar is just not that good. There was a point in time where he was okay. Again, running something like Julius Caesar YSG, it's not horrible, right? Like there is precedent for it being okay. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to do right now. I would say if you wanted to invest sculptures into an early game commander, if you're a very high spender, there are better commanders to do it than this. I think investing in this early for Mightiest Governor is also kind of psychotic. So probably just worth skipping. Over here, we're going to have the next one coming up is Frederick the First. Frederick the First, not worth universal sculptures, as many other things, as will keep coming up and will keep being apparent. He's not worth your universal sculptures. However, he's not bad as a beater. So if you got like a 5-1-1-1 Frederick pretty easily, like you just got lucky on keys, he's not really bad to run. Now, personally, if I could have a 5-1-1 Frederick or a 5-1-1 Meed, I prefer to have the Meed. However, as you guys may have seen in my 5 super FTP marches, which I might put in the description below, in that video, I talk about why I ran certain commanders, because at the end of the day, you know, you can run whatever marches you want to run in your head, but if you get something from keys, maybe that is exceptionally lucky, like a 5-2-1-1 before the end of KVK 1 with like Frederick or like a Thos or a Martel or a Meed, right? Like if you get like a bunch of extra sculptures, nothing wrong with considering about running them. Personally, Meed is just going to be better. Frederick doesn't really have any AoE, but if you get a lot of him, could be valuable. Elid is a commander that is overall, he is the best garrison, I believe. You're supposed to run YSG primary, Elid secondary, as a garrison, and is very, very, very strong. If you're a very high whale, Elid is a good choice because you're going to be garrisoning. I've also heard he can double for rally as well. However, I believe Thutmose YSG is a better rally. Pretty good overall. Can't really hate on him when it comes to rally garrison specifically. Outside of rally garrison, if you're just an average player, you should probably stay away from this commander. Again, he comes on the Mightiest Governor event, and he is generally less contested, but you should never really try to be going for these Mightiest Governor events specifically for Elid. Now, I want to say I got maybe 120 sculptures for Elid from those Mightiest Governor events, but it's because I was doing Zenith of Power at the same time, not because I thought Elid was really good. So just keep that one in mind. So Ishida is going to be one of 3 Gathering Commanders. The Gathering Commanders are obviously going to gather. This is not rocket science. As a secondary commander really early game, he's not the worst, hypothetically, if you could do a 5-1-1-5, but that just seems like really difficult for no particular reason. So I don't really like him as one of the 3 gatherers to invest in, and I don't really like him as a potential secondary commander compared to even the other gatherers. So really, you should just kind of ignore this guy. Next is going to be Sun Yuck. Sun Yuck is probably the best of the 3 gatherers. It's where all your sculptures should generally be going, and her first ability is actually really good. 1400 damage factor and 100 rage reduction is kind of awesome. Just as a secondary to Sun Tzu really early on, if you win like an early game strat reserve, isn't bad. I believe I ran her in my 5 March KVK 1. Just a pretty good commander overall. Again, nothing like exceptionally special. She's not giving like a ton of stats or whatever. But for 5-1-1-1, right, something you can get from just strategic reserve and like a couple keys, not bad. Cleopatra is not necessarily great and not necessarily bad. She's probably the 2nd best gathering commander. She's really good at gathering stuff, but she doesn't really do anything outside of that. This heal isn't super useful. However, really early game, with the first strat reserve, if I remember correctly, the first strategic reserve can only give you Cleopatra heads. So if you have like a 5-1-1 Cleo, that might be useful in, say, Sunset Canyon or Expedition. There might be times where she is useful, that's just not going to be useful later. And again, just like the other gatherers, are not worth legendary sculptures in any capacity, and generally not even worth gold stars. So I would just be very careful with how you approach these commanders. They're not super useful very early game. For a Mega Whale, Mulan is going to be kind of an awesome commander. For a mid spender, she's not. For a low spender, she's not. Late game, I believe she's no longer viable. Not a huge reason to invest anything into this commander at all. Again, if you can expertise everything, I mean, it might find her way into a 5 March, but if you can't, then don't. Charles Martel. This is going to be one of the only key commanders that is going to have any kind of functionality to where we're going to think about investing in him. He has MGEs. These should generally not be contested unless they are rigged for you. Then maybe you can consider picking him up. However, if it's rigged for you, again, when I hear rigged, I'm expecting feeding troops, not training troops or using speeds. Yeah, Charles Martel is really good. I like him a lot. I use him a lot late game, especially for chaining. He's not bad in like different events. Martel is just very versatile. In terms of like spending on dailies, he's an awesome choice to spend on dailies. And if you're a mid spender, perhaps you can consider a 5-5-1-1 Charles Martel. I really wouldn't go any further than that because although he is good, those sculptures are going to be used so much better later in the game. But again, he's not bad. If you put legendary sculptures into here, you're probably not crying about it. I just wouldn't do it. Next is going to be Chow Chow. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of this commander, but it is what it is. Early game, he's really good as a secondary to Minamoto. Some people prefer running Minamoto Baibars. If you can get 5 targets every time you attack with Mina Baibars, it's a really strong combo. If you can't, or if you find yourself in any other situation than a murder ball, Mina Baibars drastically drops in value, whereas Mina CC is one of just the strongest KVK 1 marches that you could possibly make with Cav. It's really good. Nothing shameful. He's the first guy you get from dailies. He's fine to pick up. Generally for Chow Chow, if you can get him to 5-1-5x, that's pretty good. You want his second skill to be 1, you want his third skill to be 5, whatever lands on his fourth skill, fine. As long as his first and his third are max, that's really, really good to be running him as a secondary to Minamoto. I think he's an excellent commander. I would not put legendary sculptures into him, however, buying him in dailies is totally fine. So Ethelflaed comes from the Expedition. I know that when we talk about commanders that we have to invest in, a lot of people aren't generally considering that a free commander could find its way in there. The reason why I'm adding Ethelflaed into this is because when you go to that expedition shop, you have the option to either buy golden stars and legendary golden sculptures for other commanders, or buy the legendary heads for Ethelflaed. Later, you're going to be able to buy out anything you want in that shop every single day, but early game, you have to make a decision. Early game, my decision, as long as Ethelflaed was like 5-1-1-1 by the time KVK 1 started, or 5-5-1-1, that was fine. I focused mostly on buying golden stars and golden sculptures for other commanders. It's really, really important that you note that Ethelflaed is very valuable. However, she's not the most valuable, right? She's not generally going to be used in your 5 March really early. If you're going to be fielding Ethelflaed, maybe you're fielding her KVK 3 behind Scipio, or maybe you're fielding her KVK 2 behind Richard. But again, like, you don't need all of her skills maxed. You're going to be running like a 5-5-1-1 Ethelflaed, or a 5-4-1-1 is probably fine as well. It's important to focus as much as you can on stars and other legendary sculptures, because those are the things that are going to help you the fastest. Whereas getting Ethelflaed like 1 or 2 extra skills as a consequence is not really as impactful. Minamoto is an absolutely excellent commander. I believe his price tag is somewhere in the $270, $220 range, something like that. He's one of the most cost-effective legendary commanders in the game. He's great early game in terms of combat. He's great early game in Sunset Canyon. He's great for forts. He's great for PvE. He's good for combat. He's good for KVK 1, good for KVK 2. The transition to Season of Conquest, he has the strongest double relic in the game, I think, bar none. Minamoto is an absolutely exceptional commander. Whether it be early game, PvE, PvP, transition to late game, he's really good. Like, really, really good. And he's a completely reasonable investment to make if you have an extra like $220, $270 laying around. Should this be your first $200 to $300 you invest in the game? No. But if you're investing, let's say $200, $300 a month, you should definitely find a way to make, maybe over the course of a couple months, to get Minamoto expertise. He's really, really good. I like him. Basically the polar opposite. This guy isn't useful early game. He's not useful late game. He really sucks. Unless you're spending a considerable amount of money in this game and you're really looking for the other things in the VIP chests, he's just not good. He's not a great investment at all. Buying a chest that gives you 10 Barcas so you can get the Writers of History bundle, probably reasonable. But again, he's not that good. The next 2 commanders we're going to talk about are commanders that come from something called the Wheel of Fortune. I believe about 30-something days into your kingdom, you're going to see your second Wheel of Fortune. Your first one is going to be for key commanders, but your second one is going to be for a commander called Richard I. Richard I is an exceptional PvE commander. PvE meaning he's going to be attacking barbs, he's going to be doing events, he's going to be very tanky and very slow, which for later in the game isn't very good, but for earlier in the game is very good. Richard is just an absolutely phenomenal PvE character. Really early game, he can be good in PvP, and early game as well, he can be good on the field. That will fall off. For Richard I, I think the vast majority of casual players should at least 5-1-1-5 him, or 5-1-1-1 him. And I think if you're a more competitive player, you can consider a 5-5-1-1. I would not go past this, and I think at the absolute furthest, you can go a 5-5-5-1. It's just important to note that although he may be decent in KVK 1, there are just so many different places that your sculptures could go to, and although I like Richard, I don't like him that much. So just be cognizant of how much you're spending on him, but he is a very, very good commander, and I still use him to this day. The final commander on this list, the 19th commander that you can get in KVK 1 or pre-KVK 1, is going to be Isong Ye or YSG. This is by far the best early game commander that you have access to. He's a commander so strong, he's still used later in the game. He's great in PvE, he's great in PvP. For KVK 1 and KVK 2, he's going to be some kind of combination of like your best rallies and best garrisons and best open fields. Like, he just is the best for a very long time. When you get to late game, he's no longer the best, but he's still very good. Completely fine investment. This guy's an awesome expertise. He's the only person on this list I would even consider expertising for the vast majority of players. Unless you're some kind of absolute mega whale that's going to be doing rally garrison, the only commander you should even consider expertising in any capacity is Isong Ye. And I do also have a video called How I Expertise YSG, I want to say in 126 days as an FTP. You guys can always check that out as well, but again, he's just so strong. So to wrap this up, this is quite a long video. I did draw on for a while. So in terms of the paid commanders, you have access to Minamoto and you have access to Hannibal. Hannibal should at best be unlocked for the Writers of History bundle. Just unlocked him and that's it. He's not really that good. And Minamoto is absolutely excellent. If you have access to enough money to expertise Minamoto, there is no shame in expertising him. He's awesome. Very, very good choice. In terms of dailies, you have really about 3 choices for the vast majority of players. This is going to look like Chow Chow when the dailies first open, which buying him to get him to like something like a 5-1-1-1 or a 5-1-5-1 to run as a secondary to Minamoto is a completely fine choice. If you don't have Minamoto, Chow Chow is a much worse purchase, but if you're getting dailies, you should have Minamoto. Next, the next 2 options for dailies are going to be Meed and Martel. Martel is going to be much better early game and going to give you a much bigger edge KVK 1 and 2. Meed, on the other hand, is going to be better for your transition to Season of Conquest. I think they're both great choices. Whenever I look at it, it's just how many marches do you expect to have in Season of Conquest? If you expect to have like 3 as soon as you transition in, or 4 perhaps, then Meed is going to be a lot more important. If you plan to have like 1 or 2, Martel might be more important because you want something that is going to give you more power early game and is just going to translate into like a tanky chaining march late game. Again, they're both good choices. There really is no wrong answer. If I were to personally select, perhaps I would buy dailies for Martel to bring him to at least 5-1-1-1, and then I'd be comfortable fielding that, and then I would get Meed as high as I could get him before I started buying different things for KVK 2. Finally, we're going to be talking about investments. So investments that I think could be decent. So I think every single player that has a pulse that plays this game should get Richard to at least 5-1-1-1. Every single person should do that, bar none. Absolutely excellent investment. Every competitive player should probably expertise YSG. So Richard 5-1-1-1 should be done by everybody. Expertise YSG should be done by competitive players. I would say Richard 5-5-1-1. If you are competitive enough to expertise YSG, I also think Richard should probably be brought up to a 5-5-1-1. And those are the 3 things that basically everybody that's competitive should do. Now, if you're spending in the game, I generally would not consider spending on any type of commanders unless you're at least a mid-spender. If you are a mid-spender, getting yourself a 5-5-1-1 Martel is probably okay. That's the only guy I would even moderately consider investing in. He's just not great, and neither like any of the other KVK 1 commanders are also not great. If you are a whale, commanders that I would be on the lookout for. Charles Martel is pretty nice. Richard's not bad. Pyus, also not bad, right? Some combination of these 3 commanders are going to make the single strongest infantry KVK 1 march you can make in the open field. It'll be a march that when other people attack you, they die faster than they can kill you. And it trades out really well, and you get billions and billions of kill points. Again, this is for people that are spending like $3,000 a month. If you're not spending that kind of bread in this game, then you should not be considering this march. In terms of cavalry, if you're a higher spender, I would just focus on Chow Chow if you're going to run Minamoto. Cavalry just doesn't do a lot of the rallying or garrisoning KVK 1. Also, if you are a whale and you're looking for a rally garrison, Elid is not a bad choice. YSG we talked about earlier, and Thos is not a bad choice. YSG Elid is a good garrison. YSG Elid might still be a pretty good rally if you don't want to invest in a fully separate commander in order to get there. And then, you know, Thutmose YSG can also be good as well. Martel YSG is a good garrison. Martel YSG can be a good rally. Martel Pyrus can be a good rally. Minamoto YSG can be a good rally as well. There's a whole like litany of different combinations you can make, but they're generally built from the same commander pool. So again, these are all the commanders that I see in KVK 1 pre-KVK 1. These are my thoughts on all of them. Those are the dailies I would invest in. Those are the investments that I would make as a general player all the way up into a whale. And that is what I would do with the paid commanders as well. If you guys enjoyed videos like these, or if you guys enjoy videos like these, please be sure to drop a like, a follow, consider commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. If you guys want to help support the channel, please consider donating to the Streamlabs link in the description below. We are full-time, but it's only with your guys' generosity that we can continue to do so. If you guys are interested in coaching, I have coached literally hundreds of accounts, from F2Ps to the biggest of whales, people spending like $8,000 a month. So if you guys want some private coaching, it's $35 a session. If you spend maybe $200 to $300 a month, $35 to get everything in your account cleaned up and over the course of 45 to 75 minutes is a really, really good deal. For those of you who are higher spenders and want some privacy, $75 a session for an off stream, probably also not a bad deal. If you guys want to make a ticket for that, you go to the Discord in the description below and you make a ticket. If you guys want to send me anything, you guys can send it to the P.O. box in the description below. I do drinking streams and stuff like that. So if you guys have kingdoms that have t-shirts, you want me to advertise it, you just send me a t-shirt, I'll wear it. If you guys have a bottle that you want me to get absolutely throwed on, just send it in the mail, all that good stuff. I want you guys to have an absolutely excellent day. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a good one.